things like that. So I want to kind of show you a couple techniques, and of course, always open up to you guys on the floor here, streaming in, and if there's certain questions or something that you want to take a look at certain features, I'm always happy to do Captain Tangent and go off in another direction. I'm a big fan of that. So first and foremost, for those that haven't seen, you can obviously see down here in the stream, we've released a patch. So there is now a 2020.1 version of ZBrush. So this is going to take care of some things that were popping up for you, maybe an issue or maybe some updates to some features. So definitely want to update your version. So all you have to do for that is go into your ZBrush 2020 folder, and within that folder they'll have a program called Z Upgrader. In fact, here let me show you in the actual programs here. So hold on one second. Let me pull that up and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So in the 2020, you're going to have this folder hierarchy. So what I'm talking about is this program right here. So if you run that, it will actually see that, hey, there's a new version of ZBrush, and then download the patch, which is 2020.1, and then install it for you. So you can go that route with it, or you guys are welcome to as well to use the full installer. So if you log into My Licenses, where you guys would normally go to do anything to get your downloads, there'll be a download link there now for 2020.1. So that's the version I'm using now. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware of that. And then of course we'll be having a bot and other things coming through here. So here we go. Okay, so I want to start first with looking at this guy, and this is just a default mesh. Okay, so I'm going to first go the medieval route, creating some medieval armor, and then doing some things with that medieval armor. Okay, and I want to talk about kind of thinking about these workflows, depending on what you're trying to create, is going to be maybe the feature that you want to use. So this is why I kind of want to touch base on a couple different ways to maybe go about doing this. All right, and so that we can think about this in the sense of right now I want to make a medieval suit, but I kind of also know down the pipeline I want to use things like surface noise. I'm going to want to use things like ZModeler. So number one, just the fact that I know I want to use ZModeler, there is a technique that I want to use to make sure I have the ability to use ZModeler down my pipeline and make it easy for me to use that feature down the pipeline. All right, so this is just the default model that you find right here in the Nick Ziccarella human anatomy figure that's within your Lightbox in the tool tab. It's right there. So I'm just loading him since I'm doing a medieval knight off a human character. I've already got, in essence, my proportions, my size down correct. So the first thing that I want to do here is I'm going to get rid of the polygrouping that he has, and then I also have converted this to a Dynamesh. Just making things simple. Obviously, you don't have to convert it to a Dynamesh. I just did it just to keep it kind of simple. So what I like to do design-wise is first figure out, what is this suit going to kind of look like, right? So in this flow, a lot of times I like to use just simple, some simple masking. Obviously, you're just holding Control key and saying, okay, I want to make a shoulder piece on him. And this is kind of what I like about this is I can look around at all angles, and you can see, okay, I kind of like that this is coming a little forward here, coming down the clavicle here. And so maybe I want to have a little bit of more of that happening. And then I want that theme to continue to the back, to the scapula, your back shoulder blade, in essence here. And I kind of want to make a piece like this. So one way that we'd go about doing this, okay, is obviously now turning on my polygrouping. Once why I went with just clean polygroups is I want to be able to make a new polygroup. So I've made a new polygroup, and this is what I have, okay? So this is just hitting Control W, right? That creates my new polygroup. Another way to do this is making a cleaner version of this like I have now where I've got a better sliced version. So this is what one looks like. and that's funny with the little floating eyeballs. And then the other one looks like this, right? So you can see the difference. The top one, the green one, has a nice cleaner edging to it than the bottom one, right? And I showed this in a couple streams ago. So the difference, obviously, for those that maybe didn't watch that stream before, is instead of hitting Control W, I'm hitting Control Shift and then E, which is doing a mask border slice. So in essence, it's doing a Control W repoly group and then kind of like using the slice brush at the same time. So you can find that button here in the geometry and edge loops, and you can see edge loop masked border. So obviously a workflow that people will do is I will just Control W this, I look at this, I come into my sub tools, I go all the way to the bottom, do the old school extract and hit extract, and then I say, yeah, okay, and then now I get this. And then I say, okay, that thickness is not really what I want. Let me change my thickness to maybe something more like that. I extract. Okay, I'm going to say always. And now I accept it. Oh, I accept. Okay, and then you can see that makes an extracted mesh here, okay? And then I still have my full body. So this is what I start to have happening. Now, the one thing with the extract, there's going to be benefits to this for down other pipelines and other workflows. So when you're doing an extract, the one thing that's happening here that you got to pay attention, if I'm trying to make armor for a character, that armor obviously shouldn't be, in essence, be able to sit within inside the character. That doesn't make any sense, right? If I'm going to put my hand on my shoulder here, I can't make my hand go through my body. I'm not a superhero here, although I'd like to think I am. So the extract is doing like a 50-50. It's doing a 50% of the mesh goes inside and 50% of the mesh sticks outside, right? So that's one thing I know that I don't want to have happen. The second thing is, as I started, I know I want to use something like ZModeler. So what extract is doing, it's taking what we've made, polygroup-wise in this case, and then just ripping it off the model, right? Pulling it out, inflating it out in essence, and then making a thickness and making a back, right? So the geometry that's being used to do that is the geometry that exists on the mesh. Now, why I don't want to use this technique is, like I said, I'm going to switch to ZModeler, and I'm going to want to do things like maybe insert an edge loop. The problem now, if you look at the geometry I have, number one, it's not that dense. Excuse me. It's only 5,300 polygons. But if I'm going to start trying to do things with the ZModeler, it'll work. But there's going to be points where like this. So see, because I have different geometry flow, or where these triangles are, you're going to might have run into different things that you don't want to have happen. And you can see it's starting to get really dense. And it's to the point where I want to have a little more freedom and flexibility to move this around. And then to the point of, you can see that I didn't get, because of what I sent to extract, it's not super clean. Now, that's an easy thing to fix, though, right? That I can just come down here, right, and then come down into my deformations, and I can just do a polishing here. So there's multiple polishes, and this is one of my go-tos. I love using this, polish by groups. Right, and then I can just say here, repeat to active, repeat to active, repeat to active, right? And then that's cleaning up the line for me. And that's because the extract has a polygroup here, has a polygroup here, and has a polygroup here. So in essence, the little wavy I'm getting is really not that big of a deal, because there's an easy way to clean it with this slider. And then there's two algorithms. So you got to look at this as the closed circle is saying, hey, keep the silhouette as much as possible. Don't change that form. Or open circle, it's like open season, crazy Paul time. Just go nuts, right? And allow it to really polish it, and don't worry so much about your silhouette. So you can see it shrinks a little bit, a lot more, right? So this is what I had. So you can see that silhouette that I'm getting right here. If I put this on, see that silhouette just changed, right? Because it's so strong. So obviously I did 100%, right? You can go in increments. So what I do sometimes is do a 1, and then I come down here and say repeat active, and then I stop where I'm like, okay, that looks good. That's what I want. Okay? So this, now I know, is not the workflow I want to go through, because I know I'm going to want to use ZModeler, and the mesh that I'm going to get, off the body is not what I'm looking for, okay? So, here's a question, Night Shadow. I wanted to ask if you can explain sculpting and texturing on unfolded UVs. Absolutely. I'm going to UV what I'm going to do anyway, so we can go down that road. So don't leave me, Night Shadow. We're going to definitely do that. Okay, so I'm going to just turn off that extract just so we have it. So what I prefer to do, again, and I'm thinking more in I know the steps that down the line that I want to do. So I'm going to switch to the Topology Brush. And the reason why I prefer using this is I'm going to be able to get low topology, get the topology that I want, which means because it's low, it's going to be easier for me to use something like the ZModeler. And you're going to see some stuff here. So again, I've masked out, and at this point I polygrouped something off. So the benefit is I can use this kind of as like a guide for me for the pieces. So if you've never used this brush, okay, the draw size is important to us. So when I draw across, you can see in this case, the yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black. When I scroll over, you can see my brush changes to like a blue, number one, from the red. So when it's red, that means draw. When it's blue, it means, in essence, snap to the curve and draw off from that point of the curve. Okay? So if I make my draw size bigger, you can see that the yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black, there's less of them. In essence, they become bigger than I was getting here. Why do you care about this? Is because when you start to draw across lines here, okay, so if I cut through there, and let's say let's cut through that one and come here, you can see it jumped here, and then this one jumped there. So wherever you see that yellow-black change, think that's in essence a vertex point that's possible with the brush. So when you draw through a line, ZBrush has to go drawing through that line. It doesn't just add a point through that line. It looks for the next closest possible point. So where my cursor is, in this case, it's going to snap to that point or snap to that point. So obviously, I like to go with a little bit smaller brush size because then the stroke's a little bit more dense. Like I don't like to go crazy dense, right? I don't like to go all the way down like that's super dense. I don't usually go that dense. I usually hover to the point where right around there is good enough. Okay, so this brush does work symmetrically, number one, which is great. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn off symmetry because I want to show something else that I like to use, especially design-wise and when I'm starting to mess around. So looking at the blue, I just look and go, okay, I want something to come straight across there. I can see I want kind of straight across there. And then I want a curve to come through here, so I'm just going to draw quickly through here. Okay? And you can see once you draw, it starts making these little green open circles. That green open circle, in essence, is now the vertex point that is actually created. Okay? And then now I'm going to say, okay, it needs to come like this. And I'm gonna make a point right there. I kind of want to come across. Let's see, like this. Okay, and then now you can see I wasn't able to finish that curve. So this is where it's important understanding the difference between the red and the blue change. So the red again is I'm drawing something out. When I get close, you can see it's changing to blue and it's engaging. You can see the curve now changes to red black instead of yellow black. That means I'm engaged with this curve, okay? So I want to continue this. So what I do is I keep going until it changes to that, and then now I can just continue drawing. And you see, I just continue drawing off the same curve, right? So let me do this again. And in fact, I'm going to go to the stroke palette, and I'm going to open up curve modifiers. And there's a slider here, and there's a curve snap distance. So that's telling ZBrush how close does the cursor need to get to the curve before it sees it, right? So if I up this, let's just go to 50. Let's not get too crazy, right? You'll notice now as I'm moving my cursor closer, you can see I don't need to get as close, and it already snapped engage, okay? So then now you can see there's a red line, right? And that's just pretty much an indicator to you that, hey, I'm engaged with the curve now, so now just click and start drawing, and I'll continue drawing the rest for you, right? So Again, in the stroke palette, there's a slider here called Curve Lazy Snap. For this particular brush, it's set relatively low because you're going to want to draw curved lines close to each other, right? So as far as using like the lazy mouse for this, you don't use the lazy mouse for this. So something obviously I'm assuming where you're also trying to go with this is as humans, right? And as us drawing things out, our hand might not be super steady, right? And I might be coming over here. Let's just put this in a spot where we can kind of see things, all right? And let's say we just look at through here, and you can see I have a little bit wavy of a curve here, right? It wasn't the smoothest curve, right? What's up, Alex? So in here, I want to fix this. So you can actually fix this. There's a way, so there is a shortcut that's set to fix this, okay? And you can see I'm pressing the shortcut right now, and it's a slight change. You guys can't probably see it that much. In fact, here, I'm going to turn off polyframe mode, and then maybe you'll see it a little bit. It's barely moving, right? I can see it, but it's barely moving. So what I'm actually doing is in the stroke palette, I'm in the curve mode here. So we got curve mode on, and then there's curve functions. And you can see there's a smooth button. And when I scroll over, you can see that shortcut is the number 6. Okay? So that 6 key, right, is what's being used to smooth. And below that is a strength slider for this. So I can crank this up to 100 and hit the smooth, and you can see barely anything's happening. It's a slow, steady. But that little dot is an indicator to you that there's another algorithm. If you remember what I already talked about, closed circle is like a think about it as a fist. Keep it like a fist, in essence. Keep the form, keep the silhouette as much as you can. Open circles means just open it up. Go a little strength, a little more stronger, right? So if I click this and now I hit that smooth, you can see the curves actually get clean, right? So even up here, this curve you can see now. So if I undo, you can see the change that it made. So this curve now, right? If I'm hitting the 6 key, you can see it's getting smooth, right? So I don't have to worry about some of the features that you guys are bringing up, like a lazy mouse. I don't need to use backtrack, okay? If you wanted to even draw a straight line, there's something for that already, okay? So the curve mode, there's an as line. So even if I wanted to, I can draw from point to point, and you can see it can only draw a straight line, and then that's it. And then it's going to start looking at the surface and trying to snap to the surface. Okay, so you can do that as well, right? But again, I'm not trying to be 100% perfect right now for me, okay? Because I'm just trying to make something here where I'm trying to make some armor. So now if you look, okay, I can clean up all the ends. So what I mean by ends is anything that's not making a face. So you can see down here I've actually got 2 faces being made, okay? And it's because there are multiple lines crossing each other. And this brush is only going to create a triangle or a quad. That's it. So nothing's being created here because there are more points than a triangle or quad needs, so i.e. an n-gon. So in this case, there's 5. That's actually why I put this other point here, okay? Is I wanted to highlight this and show you, look, this is what's going to happen when you start to use this brush. So there's going to be things where I want to delete, okay, or clean the edges up. So if obviously you hold the Alt key and you draw across any of the curves, they'll delete those curves for you. Now, if I want to quickly clean up all these little points here of lines that are just sitting here that aren't making anything, if you hold the Alt key and then just click and drag anywhere, you can see that it'll clean everything up for you, right? I'm just reading. Bebe's laughing at me when I share my knowledge. What am I doing? I'm not getting crazy just yet. So, what I now going to do is say, all right, let's start adding some other lines here. So, as I come across here, you can see it's creating a polygon face. I want to come across here, create a face, come across here. And now I just, in essence, create more lines of topology. That's it. That's all I'm doing here, right? Oh, I don't like that one. I want it to come here. And let's do that. Okay, and you can see there's a point here now. I'm going to get rid of that, and I can actually draw across from there, and then there you go. So what I have here now is, if we look from front view, you've got these curves that are following the body, but the topology that's being made is not following the body, and that's because obviously I don't have enough information to tell the brush to create topology to follow the body a little bit more. Okay, so I then, of course, need to create topology coming across. So I'm just going to say I'm going to come across from here, and then I'm going to make one come across like this. And I'm not trying to make anything really dense. In fact, my goal is to keep it as minimal as possible for polygons. I'm going to get rid of this stuff. We don't need any of this stuff down here. Okay, and now I'm looking around at this and going, okay, I'm going to put another curve here. And you can see it's not matching quite the curve that I put. So I need to put another point there to get a little bit closer to what I have. And this is what I'm looking for, right? So I've got something now that is definitely going to fit the body better and give me the result that I'm looking for, okay? So now I want, okay, give me something. Like, all right, yeah, I got you, okay, now give it to me. Right. So what all I'm going to do now is just tap on the surface, and what's created here is the low polygon model, right? And if I turn on polyframe, you can see the model there, okay? So number one, it's going to mask off the mesh for me, which is a great benefit because obviously you guys can switch to something like Gizmo. I can hold the Alt key and click on a face, and then I can pull that around wherever I want, right? And have that sit in the surface the way maybe I want it to sit on the surface, okay? So that's a benefit. So going back before we do some more here, what's controlling that thickness, okay, is your brush size. So the smaller you go, and when you tap, the least thick it'll be, okay? And then I'm undoing, and then the bigger you go with the draw size and then tap, the thicker you're going to get. Now, if you don't want any thickness at all, you change your brush size to 1, and then when you tap, you're going to get just that mesh. And there's absolutely no thickness to it at all. So we come back here to the gizmo and do something like this. You can see there's absolutely no thickness there whatsoever. Okay? So in essence, you can use this brush to retopologize something. I really like it to, in this sense, to create pieces for me, and I'm building off the character that I'm trying to build a piece for, right? So I'm going to go backwards here, and I'm going to create a little bit of thickness. Okay, so I'm going to say, I don't know, that probably looks like it's enough for me. We'll go with that. There. Good enough. Okay. So because it's masking off the body for me, and now I also know what my draw size is set to 8, I know now from here on out as we move on here, anytime I'm going to want to now make a piece of armor with this workflow on this particular character, I know my draw size always needs to be 8. And if you want to play safe and save out this brush and just call it Topology Armor, right? Now that is the brush I can just call every time, and I don't have to worry about my draw size. It's set to the number it's set to always when I save it. Okay? So now that I have this, I want to split this off. Okay, so I'm going to use just either one of the bottom points of splitting, either split unmasked or split masked points. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and then now what we have is the Nick character is still there, and now my new mesh is also there. Okay, so just catching up some questions here. Hey, is there a way to have Shadowbox activated, but in a certain part, like on the character, have it only be shown on the feet to make a... Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. Oh, 100%. Yes, of course. So someone's coming up with the question about Shadowbox. Okay, so for those that don't know, okay, so if you go in the tool palette, there's a folder here called Shadowbox. So this is a particular feature inside of ZBrush, okay, that you can pull from. So here's a Shadowbox 128, which is, if I ever use Shadowbox, I usually grab that, and that's usually good enough for me resolution-wise to do whatever I need to do, right? So you can load this tool, okay, and then for those that don't know, what Shadowbox allows us the ability to do is that it masks off something, right? And then whatever you masked off, you get in the middle. Okay, but what I personally always like to do if I'm using Shadowbox, I like to turn on transparency. And I like to use ghost so that I can see through. And this allows me, like if I want to create holes here, it's going to create the holes for me. Or, here, let's go smaller, then have a line go through there, something like that, right? And then if I can do something like this, right? And then there you go. Okay, you have that ability. So really what's happening here, for those that don't know, in the geometry, so raise your hand if you've never used Shadowbox. Okay. So yeah, the stream title is incorrect. We'll have to fix that. So what I'm using is Shadowbox, which is in geometry, Shadowbox, and you can see that the Shadowbox button is on. Okay? So what you can do is turn this on and off. So when the button's on, it's looking at these three planes, and you mask to create what you want in the middle. And when you want what you want in the middle, you click off the shadow box, and now you actually get the mesh itself, right? And you can see the resolution is 128. And if you remember, I grabbed that tool, and the name of the tool says, Shadowbox 128. The 128 was referring to the resolution. So, baby, so as far as Shadowbox again, you don't know what happened in the last 5 seconds. Hi, Slow D. What happened in the last 5 seconds, I guess? Okay, so let me just reiterate Shadowbox. In fact, here, let's just go to this guy, okay? And let's just grab the floor. Okay, as an example, I'm going to just grab this floor subtool right here. So you can either load a shadow box again from the light box in the tool menu here. There's a shadow box folder. Okay, or you can just grab any mesh and turn on shadow box. Okay, so all you do is go to your tool, geometry, and then right here you just turn on shadow box, and you can see you get a shadow box, right? And so now I have this shadow box sitting here. And because I had a mesh selected, it automatically gives me the three masks and creates a representation of the mesh in the middle. So if we took this as an example again to just give you an idea here, if we loaded, let's load a head as an example. This is a great way to say, hey, I just want to use the demo head and create a really quick base mesh. You guys can just come here, click on shadow box, and then there you go. You got a base head. It's not super clean, but it's also because my resolution's not set high enough. Okay, and then now you can see there's the three masks that's creating the head in the middle. And so from here on out, I can say, oh, let me refine this and maybe take a bite out of his forehead, and you can see it matches that masking. And you can see there's these lines here that are showing you where the furthest point of this side, it shows you here what it is down here. Right, so if I do something like this, see that line doesn't disappear because that line's referring to this, and then this line is now referring to where this sits. Okay, so see with transparency, I can't see the mask, right, if I don't have transparency on. So I like to do this so I can actually go through the mask looking at like a certain view, and then this is what I'm getting. Okay, so back to the question to the person, if you're getting shadow box, you can just move it where you want it, right? So obviously this, I would clear the mask and then move this where I want, maybe size it down. From this view, make it be there. And then now you just start shadow boxing, right? And that's it. So to the question that came through, I think like 20 minutes ago, that's all you would need to do is just resize your shadow box, move it to the position where you want it to go. Okay? I don't remember who came through with that question. Where was it? Okay, it was Night Shadow. I almost said Night Ninja. Night Shadow 881. There you go. That's how you would do something like that. Okay? So going back to then what I was doing. Okay, so I'm going to turn transparency off, and I'm just going to turn this floor off now. I've got this mesh, right? So if we look at this, it is super low polygon, which is to my benefit. So now I want to go, okay, I want to adjust it. So I'm going to say I'm going to pull this off him a little bit more like this, Okay? And now what's going to be nice about this, because it's so low polygon, if we're looking at just this, we do get the multiple polygroups, number one. Okay, so you got a polygroup in the back, polygroup in the front, and you got a polygroup down here, right? What's nice also is I'm now going to switch to ZModeler, and unlike this piece, okay, that is a lot more dense here, I have hardly any density. So for example, if I say, hey, you know what, I kind of don't like where that edge loop is sitting, I want to slide that complete edge loop. So right now I'm using ZModeler. So I just switched B, okay, and then Z for ZModeler, and then the M key is the next shortcut to that. So that's giving me this brush. So I can come in here and say, hey, let me affect this and play this. Now, because we're sitting low, the other thing that I want to be able to do is, hey, what does this look like, and i.e. this? So this is super smooth, right? It looks a lot cleaner compared to this one is very low, very low polygon and faceted. So what I'm going to tell ZBrush to do is show me the smooth version, right? So number one, I'm getting one benefit of this where I'm seeing the smooth version, but it's not dense. So this is only 64 polygons compared to almost 6,000 polygons. Okay, so for what I'm trying to make, which is like a knight armor, that I'm also going to want to UV these maybe and do some stuff with this, okay? So I want to do some more things with this. Number one, okay, I might say, you know what, I'm going to just give you an idea here, change the thickness and play with it. So right now, I'm going to turn on polyframe mode. And again, how I turned on this dynamic is in geometry and dynamic subdiv. And you can see the button right here that turns it on and off. And you can see low res and high res also swap on and off. So what we're doing is using the same shortcuts. So Shift D turns off dynamic, D turns it on. So that's the same shortcuts if I had subdivision levels, right? So now I just divided. So Shift D walks down and then D walks up, right? And because I don't have any subdivision levels right now, if I hit that D key, ZBrush knows, oh, you want to have dynamic turned on. So that's what it knows, okay? Now, the reason why I like this is I like using my polygrouping. So I'm going to hover over a face. I'm going to hold my space bar. I'm going to say Q mesh, and I'm going to say polygroup all. And now I can click on this and add another edge loop, or I can hold the Shift key and actually change the thickness and watch the thickness change, right? So I don't know why I tilt my head looking at the thickness instead of just looking at it. I'm going to change the thickness, okay? And I'm just holding the Shift key with Q mesh mode, and that allows me kind of the freedom to play with this. Or I can come in here and say, let's pull it more out this direction, right? Or like I said, I can click, and now it's added another edge loop through there for me automatically and created a new polygroup. So the other benefit to this, again, is because I'm sitting so low, right? And looking at this, I want to look at this a little more smooth. So I'm going to go to dynamic. I'm going to change this to 4. So now it's really smooth, okay? But the creasing that's been done on these edges automatically when I use this brush, I don't like how sharp or harsh they are. Okay, so I'm going to open up my crease menu. And for me, my go-to here is I like to have my smooth subdiv and dynamic at 4. And I like to put my crease level at 2. And now I've got a nice little bit softer edging through there. Okay, so now you have that, and there you go. Night shadow, is there a way to make an alpha texture from a color image that is text only to be used in 3D text image? Absolutely. That's super easy, but there's a better way to make text inside of ZBrush than that. So remind me about that in a minute here. Let me just finish off kind of where I'm going with this. Okay, so what I've done now is I've set up where I've got a nice looking plate that's sitting on this character. I'm looking at it smooth. I got nice rounding in here, okay? My active points is only sitting at 64 polygons, which that means it's super light, okay? So what I want to do now is maybe start doing some more design element to it. But I didn't make the other side, okay? So there is a quick way in geometry to create the other side for me. So I can just go to modify topology and hit mirror and weld, right? And then tell it to create the other side, right? They're easy, super simple. However, design-wise, sometimes what I like to do, instead of doing this approach, I've become a big fan. This is especially when we start talking about brushes like this and we start talking about live booleans, okay? I prefer to use something like array mesh. So what I like to do for me is I'll turn on array mesh, okay? I'm going to tell ZBrush, let's lock the position, let's lock the sizing. So let's keep my size proportionally and my position proportionally to what I'm going to be starting to array here, okay? And right now I'm repeating 2, okay? So example, if I turn on this transpose option, and then we go in the transpose line, you can see this line is now being used in essence as a controller to array mesh. So with this off, it looks like that. With this on, it looks like this. And you can see repeat right here in stage. So right now I'm in move mode. So if I start moving around, you can see I get a duplicate of that. And if I start scrolling left to right, I get duplicates of that piece, okay? So what I want to do here is, okay, I've got this piece sitting here. This transpose line, in essence, is controlling these 4 buttons now down here. So there's an offset, scale, a rotate, and a pivot. So as an offset is the move, scale is the scale, rotate's the rotate, and then the pivot is the pivot point. Where do you want the array mesh to be pivoting around? And this yellow circle right here in the middle is the pivot controller. So what I'm going to do is tell ZBrush, what I want you to do is actually reset the pivot point. I don't want the pivot point to be in here, okay? So for example, if we just up the repeats, okay, now if we go to rotate and we just rotate around an axis, you can see I'm just rotating around the X based upon where that pivots. So if I start doing this and moving, see that pivot point? So now it's rotating around wherever that transpose line's sitting, okay? So what I want to do is I just want a repeat of 2, okay? And I want to reset the pivot. And you can see that line now moved. And where did it move? It moved to the center of the world, which I'm actually this guy sitting at the center of the world, okay? And now that I have this guy sitting at the center of the world, I'm just going to tell now array mesh to do one other thing for me, and that's mirror along the X. And so why I care about this and why sometimes I like to use this workflow is, yes, I have symmetry, X symmetry, okay? But now I also have symmetry just on the actual mesh itself. So I have double symmetry, okay? So the mesh still has symmetry. So when I turn on symmetry, okay, I can tell to look at the world. But if I tell local, now it's just looking at this piece. It's ignoring this, okay? So here, if I can put this in another example. In fact, here, let me just quick save this real quick. So we have it, and let me load something else that gives you guys an idea here. So like I'll use this a lot. I used it to do things like I made a Rocketeer and backpack, and it was huge for me. So let me just find example this guy right here. Okay, so if we look at this now, we got this piece that Joseph made. Okay, and I'm just going to look straight on this. You can see array mesh is on. Okay. And so I can pull this out, right? And let's switch to just single polygon for now. And obviously what's happening on the left screen is happening on the right screen for us. But what's beautiful here is I got that X symmetry. But if I say, okay, let's do symmetry locally, you can see now I've got double symmetry in essence. So I'm having symmetry just only on the leg, and it's also happening on the other leg. Right? And that's only because if I turn on polyframe mode, you can see the only thing that's actually on polyframe mode is the one leg, because the only mesh that actually exists right now in the scene and what I'm doing is this left leg, well, screen left, right? Because array mesh is making the other leg for me. It's like if I turn off array mesh, that other leg is going to disappear. So my advantage, check mark here, is double symmetry ability. I got the symmetry on the leg, and I got symmetry across the X as well. Okay? It's not another subtool. It's what it is the same subtool, but we're arraying it across the actual axis point for you. Okay? So I like this is because I've got that double symmetry, and then I can sit here and I don't even have to worry about being in symmetry mode ever. And I can say, okay, let's Q mesh, let's polyloop. I'm going to make a little lip here. Okay, and I'm going to make the lip come up now. And I know automatically it's happening over on the other side for me. Right? And I'm going to say, okay, I don't like the creasing on this. So I'm going to hover an edge, crease, complete edge loop, hold the Alt key, uncrease that. Let's soften that up. Right? And in fact, I don't even want this edge loop in here through there. So give me something maybe more like that. So you can see what we can start creating here, right? And I'm going to uncrease that so it maybe does a little bit something more like that. I want to kind of soften, bring that into the mesh for me, right? So I don't want it to be very harsh, okay? Because I uncreased that. So you can see that green part's pushing a little bit more in, right? So when I turn Shift D, I had this creased before. So now if I hit D, see it's very sharp. Hold the Alt key, uncrease it. Now it's blending into there. Okay? And then, of course, if you want to insert an edge loop through here, you're going to change that look, right? And now it's got a little bit more harshness through there. Okay, happening. So maybe I do want like a more pronounced lip happening here. Okay? And then and again, I can look at this and go, you know what? I kind of still don't like, now that I've added this little ridging part, okay? I don't like the thickness. So I come back here, I Q mesh, right? And I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, I now have two polygroups here. Okay, so I could just select this, Control Shift X, grow it out once, okay? And then do a Control W, and I'm just creating a new polygroup on those faces below, right? Because if you remember, we can Q mesh polygroup all now, and I can change and say I want the lip to more look like that. Like I don't want to be too thick, right? And in fact, I don't like this creasing as well. So I'm going to go uncrease this design-wise. And then this is the beauty of the dynamic. I can see what this is looking like without actually dividing. Okay, and then I can still use a brush like we have here, which is our ZModeler brush. And now I can really see what that armature is going to look like, or that armor that's going to look like on this character. Okay? Okay, so now the beauty of this is, again, because if you remember, if you were joining me since the beginning of the stream, okay, I'm going to go to that one question now. Somebody was asking about the UVing and painting and all that on UVing, and then we'll come to the text part after this. Okay? So what I want to do here now is, okay, take advantage of low polygons, and I'm going to just UV this out. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, number one, first, I want to look at, say, i.e. my polygrouping. So what I want to do here is look at this and go, okay, this has got one polygroup here. Okay? This has got a polygroup. And then this ridge part has a polygroup. Okay, great. That's actually what I want. I want this ridge portion here to have its own polygroup. I want this flat surface here, which, i.e., the top front, the viewing surface to us, to the viewer, the person that's going to see your model. Most people will never see this one, right? So, but that's got its own polygroup as well. So I'm going to make that a different color polygroup so you can really see the difference. This is actually what I want. Okay, so my next step now is I'm going to go to my plugins. Okay, and I'm going to open up my UV master. Okay, so look up here, look up here, look at me, look at me, look at me. When you guys are going to use this feature, you might be doing this on something that's got subdivision levels. Okay, so 100% if you're dealing with something that has subdivision levels, okay, is work on the clone. And what that does is makes a clone of this. And I actually don't need a ray mesh on anymore, right? Because I really only care about this model, okay? And the reason why it's work on clone is what it does is creates a new tool, right? That's specifically only working on the low polygon version of your model. And in our case, we don't actually have any subdivision levels. We have only a low polygon. But if you're going to use this feature, especially for something with subdivision levels, you're going to definitely want to work on the clone. Okay? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell polygroups, and I'm going to say unwrap that. So what I'm doing is I'm using the polygroups as my driving force. So when I flatten this, we're going to get UVs like this. Okay? So the most important part of this for me, okay, the feature that's the most important to me is the pink, right? Because if you remember, the purple is the part that's going to be inside the shoulder, and the green edges are just, the loops going around. What I really care about is the pink, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the gizmo here, and I can say, you know what, let's resize this, okay? And the only one I care about is the pink, actually. So I'm holding control, and I'm tapping on the pink while I'm in gizmo mode. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to inverse that. I'm going to center that. I'm going to shrink these down. And I'm just going to put them in the top corner because I really don't care about these at this point. Okay, I only care about the pink. Okay, and then now I'm going to inverse those, recenter this, and I'm just going to size up this pink and reposition this kind of where I maybe would want this to be UV wise. Right? And I'm making it big because this is the most important thing to me, is this portion of the mesh in the UV space. Okay? In Joseph we trust. Yes. You should do it. Okay? There's a joke on, I'm going to print text on my t-shirts. One will say, look up here, and the other will say, in trust in Joseph. Yeah, and I usually also say, in Joseph we trust. So, okay, so now that I have this, right, I can clear my mask, I unflatten it, okay, and I'm just going to copy my UVs, right, come back to this mesh, and then I'm going to paste my UVs, and that's going to put these UVs on here. So if I come in the tool palette and go to UV map and hit morph UVs, you can see the UVs that I get. Right? It's pretty much what I did in the actual UV master, okay? And obviously, because I have a ray mesh on, I'm seeing double, right? So obviously, if you turn a ray mesh off, right, you would only see the one morphing. That's it, okay? That's all you would see morphing. Okay, let's turn our dynamic back on, okay? And looking at this dynamic, okay, what's important becomes important to me is that pink portion, okay? So in that pink portion, I want to put like a nice little pattern there. Okay, so I want to use the UVs that I just laid out as my driving force. Okay. Unfortunately, to small x, the peel UV we showed, it's still in development. So, that's all I can say about that feature, unfortunately. We're still doing some things development with it. Okay, so obviously I'm going to go to surface, okay, because this is going to be the best spot for me to do this. I'm going to hit noise, and now what I'm going to get is this, okay, and you can see there's a noise here. So I got a little bit of strength I can play with and mess with that. But what I want to do is add an image, okay, and right now we're applying the noise based upon a 3D mesh, okay. So the alpha down here, which probably many of you have used before, okay, I click on that, and I want to load this image. So I made an image ahead of time, which is like a flower image. Okay, and so right now, what's happening is I'm blending between two noises, which is actually going to be really nice here in a second. So I'm blending between this noise, which is my graph, so you can see I can do this with it. Okay, and then I am blending with this. So there's a mixer here that tells it what noise is more important, right? So if I go this way, it pretty much this noise is the number one, number one, right? If I start going all the way to 0, it now ignores this. So if I'm going something like the 50s, right? Then it's a 50-50, okay? So what I want to do here now is affect my noise. So I want to affect the scale. So this alpha scale slider, as you can see, as I go smaller and smaller, it's giving me the noise. Right here, let's up the strength a little bit so you guys can see what's going on. Right, so you can see now that flower pattern is pushing in, right? And then I still have the other noise going on here, right? So I'm going to change the scale of that noise as well a little bit. Let's play with the graph a little bit like that. Let's even do a little bit more. Okay, so one thing you notice when we come here, you can see what the noise is doing. It's kind of stretching because right now I have this based upon a 3D. So I'm just going to throw this little UV on, right? And then now this is what I can use, and you can see the flower pattern is very different here than say in the back. So you can see how big it is in the back. And that's because in the UV space, that purple part, if you remember, is really tiny, and the pink part is taking up most of everything, right? So what I want to do here now is kind of look at this and go, all right, I've got a kind of a combination. And so I can go pushing in, or do I want the flower pattern pushed out? Okay, do I want it to cut into the surface? Cut out. Now, what I want to do is I kind of like this blending the noise, but I'd rather put it somewhere else. I don't want it on the flowers. So I would do maybe come in over here and start messing with these abilities through here to say, how do I want the noise to start mixing, right? And so now this noise, in fact, is only mixing now. The flower portion isn't being touched, and then now there's a little dot. So here, let's change the strength to an up. Right, so you can see now it is being touched. So if I do a min, so you now see only the flowers getting it. If I do a difference, I do a multiply, right? I can do a max, right? I can even flip this vertically. I can flip it horizontal, right? And now you can see the noise is now only going in here. It's not touching the flowers. So there's all these options for us to start deciding how does the noise mix with everything. Right? What do I want this to look like? Right? So, and then again, I have a separate scaler for this pattern, and then I got a separate scaler for this pattern. Right? So this is all I'm doing. Right? I say okay, and now I can see that on the model. All right? And what I want to do is, again, I only want it happening in the pink. Right? So then I'm going to just throw on the gizmo. I'm going to mask out where I kind of want. So in essence, I want just the pink area, right? And so I'm going to unmask all that, and now you see, and kind of what I'm seeing is the back mask portion, right? And now I can see that pattern there. And what I have the capability to do is if I do a render inside of ZBrush, okay, which is just rendering with BPR, we'll get a result. So that's actually what it would look like if I applied this noise to this particular mesh. Okay? So this is a great way for me to work, and this is part of the reason why I wanted to work with the topology brush and kind of have low topology to it, right? So this gives me the ability to play with this, and then I can come through here and I can edit my strength the other way, say okay, and then now if I re-render, I'm going to see what the floral pattern is now being pushed out instead of being pushed in, and I can experiment, and I'm not really dense. Like that's aggressive. That's super aggressive, right? So that's a little too much. But you know what I like to do with this, me personally, actually, I like sometimes to keep this looking like that, Okay, and when I want to now go apply, I can come here and say, well, I need topology now to apply it. Right now, I'm only sitting at 144 polygons. So in dynamic, I'm going to hit this apply button, and now I'm sitting at 36,000 polygons. So I'm going to need more than that. So I'm going to clear my mask. I'm going to divide up some more, divide up some more. Let's go even one more. Let's get cray-cray. 9 million. Okay? So I got 9 subdivision levels. All right? And what I want to do now is actually apply this. So I want, right, in that pink area is the only area I want the floral pattern. So you can see that floral pattern is now only in the pink area. I can even hide my mask so I can see what that's going to look like. And I'd probably switch to material that maybe can see things a little bit better through here. We'll turn off the poly paint. So you can see what this is really going to look like. So I got a material with some spec, so I can see what that spec's going to look like. So obviously maybe I would want to do something like this and then render that out and see what we get, right? So when this render's done, which I'm using Shift R to do a render, and now it's rendering through the process, and then that's what it's going to look like if I applied it, right? So I'm going to keep this extreme because for me, this is what I like to do personally for surface noise, especially designing element, or if you're ever being contracted out, okay? There's times where I'll put a pattern on something, and then they come back and say, yeah, we've changed our mind. I'm like, of course you did. This is why I like to do this. I like to actually make a layer first. So I come to layers, turn on the layer, okay? And then now I come down here to the surface noise and I say apply to mesh. And now what that's doing is looking at our noises and what we've been doing in the noise and actually applying it. And because I've made a layer in record mode, it's going to put those changes on the layer. This is why I like to use a layer when I'm trying to do this, okay? So now I'm in record mode, which means recording what I'm doing. And I'm going to click to the right of that, which now it's just in view mode. So now I'm just viewing it. And again, I'm going to turn off the poly paint. Right? And this is why I like to do this. You know, this is obviously ridiculous. So I can just come to layer and I can dial back and look at this dialed back. Right? And see how is that going to be dialed back. Like this is probably where I'd want to sit more, something more like that. Or, you know, I can go negative. Well, what does it look like negative? And I can see what that's going to look like negative. So I don't, in essence, I have freedom here to make a decision. And if I don't like this anymore, I kind of like to point to, okay, I can just turn it off and then delete the layer. So it gives me the ability to, okay, I'm looking at this and seeing, do I want this? And this is what I'm really happy, which I'm good to go. I like this, right? So now, of course, now that I have this, right, we can come back and turn our array mesh on, and now I have the other side as well. And then this gives me a great way to start looking at this, okay? So this would work for, yeah, anything, hieroglyphics, any way that you want to go about doing this. But you're maybe going to want to start, speaking of hieroglyphics, you're maybe going to want to start making your own and using it other ways. So I know there was a question, a while ago about UVing. Okay, I forget who it was by. Let me see if I can find it. Go back to that question, and then we're going to move on to something else here. So if you're still in the stream, the person asked the UV, can you throw me that question again so I can answer it for you? I can't seem to find it in all the chat mess now. Okay, so because I want to keep designing, right? So while that person's being caught up, now my next thing would be to make another plate, right? Maybe I want to make a chest plate, but I want to build it off this guy. So for me, I just like to do, okay, we're going to work in symmetry and say, okay, there's going to be a plate that comes across maybe and does this. And I want it to wrap clavicle so there's room for him to move, right? And we say, okay, let's give him a little bit more freedom in that clavicle and give a little bit more space between plates. You know what? I kind of want to make a chest plate that does that, right? And then you know what? Maybe I want to make a little different type of design element. So this is why I kind of like this. I can visually see something and say, I kind of, okay, I like where I'm going with this, right? And then now I switch back to, again, my topology brush. And now all I have to do is, okay, there needs to be a line there. Okay, there needs to be a line there. There needs to be one there. There needs to be one there. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is come into the middle, and I'm just going to go right down the middle and make a symmetry line. So because I'm in symmetry mode right now, I'm going to come down here to show you. If I keep coming to the middle, you'll see that it becomes one square, red square, right? So now I can just, and then now this is all about steady hand. And then there you go, you're making that line, right? Because now what I want to do, now that I have that symmetry line, I would want to draw off that symmetry line and come down like this, right? And then say, okay, now let me draw off that line, right? So I got a point here, and now I just cleaned up what we did. And now again, we have to do what we were doing before is we need more topology, right, to come across this. And I added an extra point in there along the way. Okay, so now we just start going about the process here of saying, okay, I want topology. Okay, if you're having problems with symmetry and you can't grab it, the best thing to do, honestly, is turn off your symmetry. Okay, so if we go backwards here, technically, we get rid of the symmetry line. Okay, I don't really need symmetry. Okay, I can turn it off because I know as long as I go past that point, in fact, here, I want to do a line there and come across like this. Okay, as long as I know I'm going across that center point, that's all I care about really, right? And I can do something like this, and now I got this chest plate, right? So then I can say, okay, I want to come across that to make that face. Okay, I'm going to come across that to make that face. I need a face there. Okay, and now I need to make faces coming this way. So here we'll just do solo mode so you guys can see. And this is the process that I would make to make, for me, some chest plate pieces through here, right? And you can see now I'm making triangles, so I can draw right off here, right, off these points, and I can start changing this and say, okay, let's change this design up a little bit. I'm going to say I don't need to be as big again, and start coming across here, and then just building up this surface the way I want. Okay, maybe change this. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like this. Let's change the design a little bit. Let's make this be 1, so it's kind of going around, and then come through here and then start changing up the design a little bit. So I can have freedom here to keep going where I want to go, and then say, okay, now I want that. It might help if I click on the green, and then you're off and running, right? And this symmetry line is going to be a simple thing, right? So when I tap, when we were at draw size of 8 is what I was originally at. I tap, I get my surface, right? And again, now I just tell it to split off, right? And now I have this. And now all I need to do is, not with local on, come down here to mirror and weld, and I'll get that center portion that I want. And it's actually welded together and give me everything I want. And I can now switch to ZModeler, and I can even say, you know what, actually I don't want that center piece like that. I want it to come across like this. And now I do want to work symmetrically. You know, I want to now just change the design even more and use actually ZModeler to change the design. You know, I don't like this edge loop here. I don't like that edge loop there. I'm going to keep it even more simplified and do something like that. And of course, we look at it now rounded, right? And right now this edge is creased, so we'll uncrease that. And then now this is just going through the same process that we've already talked about. I like to put my subdiv at 4. I like to have my creasing down I like to start it at 2, so I get something like that. And if we come out of solo mode, this is the plate that I start to make. And now that it's low polygon, it's easy for me to say, okay, actually I want a harsh point right here. So I'm going to crease a single edge, right? And say, okay, no, let's crease that edge and create something like that instead, right? And let's put it back down to 2, and now we have something like this, right? And if I don't like this, again, I like to switch to slide and like the single edge, and I can do things like this, and it's going to start changing the profile, right? So I can actually slide this around if I want to. I could also mask off a single edge and then inverse that, then switch to the gizmo and kind of see, because I'm low polygon, I can really change the look and feel of what this plate is actually going to look like, right? And then of course I can say, all right, we need this to be centered, and then I'm going to pull it off the chest a little bit, maybe something like that. And in fact, let's use along a normal. Hold the Alt key, and now I can move it along, and then that's what I have, right? So you can see how I can start making this process. And now I just continue this and make the next plate, and then maybe I want a plate here to protect his obliques, and going through the process of doing that. Okay, I'm just reading a question. Hold up. Bebe, how can you have such detail with 9 million polygons and prep low polygon for game engine? So obviously, the low polygon version of this, right? So if I go back to this shoulder plate, what's probably going to go in the engine is probably not even this. This is probably a little, maybe it is this. It's a pretty low. I might go maybe 1 level up and do something maybe a little bit more like that to begin the engine, right? Because that's still only 570 polygons, and then multiply that by 2. So you're looking at, 1140, okay? And I'm going to use like a normal map. So this will be going out, and then in ZBrush, I come down here, and I tell it to create a normal map, okay? And so you just create a normal map, and then ZBrush is looking at the UVs. It's looking at this version of the mesh. It's looking at the high-res version of the mesh, and it's going to start creating a normal map for me. So this would be how I would get something out, and then obviously get it into a gaming engine. And then ZBrush has the ability to export FBX, which is great for you in the gaming engine world, because if you got a normal map sitting in this menu, when you go to export, ZBrush is going to export the maps for you along with the mesh, and then when you bring it into your Unity or Unreal or whatever engine you're going to use, if you import FBX, and as long as they support it, it'll come in with the mesh and already have the maps assigned to material, which then is obviously applied to the mesh within your engines. Okay, so that's a great way to go about this. No, when you generate the normal map, you want to be at the version of the model that's going to be in the engine, so the low version. If you're at the highest level, you're not really going to get anything in the normal map, because the normal map, how it's being generated by ZBrush, is doing a comparison between the low version, which we're looking at right now, and it knows what the 9.5 million version looks like, right? So it's doing a comparison between those to generate the actual normal map. So this is obviously with 9.5 million, this is going to take obviously a minute or two to generate a map for us. Okay, and then once that's done, then you can just now export. So now it's generating the map. So along the top here, there's a indicator of what it's in the process of doing, and then there's your map, and you can see my patterns in the map. That's it. That's all you got to do. So obviously everyone's workflow is going to be different. Okay. The video wasn't freezing. It was because the ZBrush was generating this map. So that's that question. Okay, is that UV person still in here? Okay, so I don't know if the UV person's in here. Okay, so something that I like to do, especially again, this stream for me is all about thinking about design with inside of ZBrush and thinking about using the right feature for the right thing. So again, I started this with I wanted to use ZModeler. So I know that Topology Brush was my best technique for this. Unlike I saw someone saying already in the chat that they would just use masking and bump off, right? What up, Dougie? So, one other thing I like to do and what opens up advantages to me is designing in different things, right? So, I want to start designing something. So, I want to start designing a little disc that's maybe going to go on this somewhere, right? And it's going to go where I need it, right? Like maybe right here on, well, you can't see that, on his chest up here, okay? So think about if you go look at the movie Gladiator, like what Joaquin Phoenix was wearing, right? He's got sometimes little plates here, little things here. So I'm not sure what I want, right? So I have another tool, and what I have through here are subtools of different like kind of plates, right? And so I can go to this one. Okay, do I want a plate that looks like that? Okay, there's just different types of plates. Maybe I want a plate like this that has some kind of pattern thing going on in the middle. So I like this one. This is the one I'm going with. It's got some nice little, let's say there's going to be jewels going around there. Okay, and then right now, again, I'm looking at dynamic subdiv, so it's super low topology, which this is very important. Okay, and I'm looking at the smooth version. Now, what I want to turn on is this. Okay. So there's a flower pattern here, right? That I can have on. So do I want something like this? So this is just sculpturally. I actually don't like this. So what I ended up doing designing wise is doing something more like this. Okay? And now what's really nice about this, okay, is I'm using array mesh. Okay? So let's take a look at how I started to do this. Because even me as a person, as an artist, I didn't know I actually liked the looks of this. So it was kind of a happy mistake. And then you can see I can change the size of it if I want to. Maybe have it sit a little bit lower in this. Okay. And what I'm using here to do this is array mesh. Okay. And what's going to be nice to open this up for this is a version of it with 24 repeats. So what's it look like with only 8 repeats? What's it look like with 4 repeats, right? This is now the beauty is I'm designing this, okay, but I'm not quite sure even which one I want. And for this fact, I'm designing this not on the character yet. So I want to set myself up to kind of be able to create something for myself down the line, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, you know what? I kind of like what's happening with this flower. So I'm going to duplicate it a couple times. Let's say 4, because I want to maybe have 4 different flower patterns. Okay. So let's duplicate a 5th, and let me show you how I got to this. Okay. So I'm just going to delete the array mesh. So what you have here is a very low polygon, and this was made from a cube. That's how I made this little leaf part. Right? I want to keep it as low polygon as I can. Now, low polygon wise, you can see it's creating like kind of like a TP sharp part. I know that when I divide with inside of ZBrush, that's going to get rounded. So I can look at it dynamic and actually see, okay, that's what I want, right? If I was to work with this and add another insert edge loop and put in here, see, it becomes now maybe do you want the little petal to be more like this? Do you want a petal more like that? Or do you want to pedal more like what I did? Like, I don't know. Which, in fact, I kind of like that one now, right? And then now I'm going to say, oh, that looks cool. All right. And now maybe I'm going to say, ooh, let's play with this. Let's throw even a crease. Oh, yeah, there. Happy little trees. Happy little trees. And let's go maybe less, or maybe let's go even more sharpness. Okay, and now again, smoothness is 4, my crease level. This is telling ZBrush how long again to hold that creasing. Okay, so I'm going to say, yeah, 2 looks good. Okay, so this is what I have. I've got this subtool that's just sitting here. Okay, so here's how I do it. And I'm using now array mesh more as like a design process element because I'm not sure what I want and I'm not sure what I'm going to put on my knight. Okay, I'm not sure where I'm going to go with him. So I'm going to turn on array. It's the first thing. I'm going to turn that on. Okay, And then now I'm going to turn on, okay, the W key, which will turn on our gizmo. And I'm going to hit the Y key, which gives us our transpose line. The reason why I'm going to do this is I want to use the transpose line as my driver to my array mesh. So to do that, again, I'm going to turn on transpose. And you can see what happens. This snaps now to the center of where this mesh is, right? The bounding box of this mesh, it's to the center. So for example, let's just say I want 8, okay? So I want 8 repeating. So what's going on right now is there's 8 of these little leaf things, or this little pattern that I'm making, repeating in the exact same spot. What I actually want to do is I want to rotate around, looking at my world, the green line, which is my Y. So I'm going to come here to rotate and go Y, and I want to rotate 360 degrees. And you can see where that transpose line is, okay? That's where it's rotating around. So if I was to grab this yellow circle and start moving it more to the center, you can see I start getting more a pattern like this. So in essence, that little yellow circle is my pivot here, right? So you can see I have the ability to pivot this off in any direction that I want, right? And I can use a slider, so I can come in here and put an exact number if I want. And then now I'm sitting maybe where I want. So maybe I'm going to go 0.38. That's a little too much, 0.36. So I can dial in what I'm looking for, right? So this is just how I did this. This is the approach I took to this. Okay, and now as a user, I'm like, okay, what I'm doing here looks pretty cool. All right, let me not save this. And I want, okay, something like that to be in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag this up. And it's kind of, I don't actually like how big that is for me. I'm going to kind of just make it a little bit smaller, push it in maybe a little bit more. Yeah, there. I kind of like that because I kind of want to show off what the array mesh is doing for me, which is a happy accident. Like I didn't even think about that, right? Array mesh is giving it to me. So what's happening here is I'm making now a version of this, okay, in multiple different ones. So this is what I'm going to do now. I'm actually going to make sure dynamic subdiv is turned off for everything. Okay, so I want a very low polygon. And what I'm going to come do now is these array meshes. Okay, and today, the best way for me to probably do this and approach for me to do this, okay, would be to make a foldering system here, right? So I'd probably come here, make a new folder, and we'll just call it Flower Power. Whoops. Flower Power, right? And, okay, I don't want that disk, but I'm going to want that array. I'm going to want that array, that array, that, and say that, okay? So, looking at this, I can come here and say, okay, this folder, all right, I want you to merge folder. Okay, and what it does is you can see it creates a new mesh with everything merged together. Now you see I lost that flower part, and there's a reason for that. Okay, so I'm going to delete this one now, and I'm going to come back and turn this back on, and I'm going to come here to this flower. So this is an array mesh. So again, this is something that when I'm turning my polyframe mode on, I only see the one. Okay, so the reset button will align and put your transpose line at the center of the world, like I did previously, Dougie. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell ZBrush, I'm going to turn off this extrude and say make mesh. So what it does is it turns the array mesh into real topology. Okay? And so now when I come here and I say merge folder, now I'm getting the flower with everything merged. So what I want to do is I'm going to name this one flower 1. Okay, and okay, so now let's go back. Let's turn these on. Let's turn this array mesh off. Okay, and have this array mesh on now. Okay, so now we have something that looks like this. I don't want to have dynamic on. I'm coming back down to my array. Let's make this one be 6. Okay, then I say make mesh. Come back here, go to my folder. Okay, and then I can say merge folder. So now this is going to be flower 2. So I'll rename that flower 2. All right, come back into my folder. Let's turn this stuff on. Okay, so we're going to come back to now this array mesh. Okay, and this one, let's turn this off. And then let's have a little more fun with this one. Maybe something crazy like that. I'm going to turn on dynamic so I can see what that's. Ooh, that's pretty cool. That looks very different, right? I like that one actually. Actually, right now so far, that's actually one of my favorite ones. I really like this. But watch what's going to happen here and why I'm doing this. There's a reason why I'm doing this. Okay, there's a reason to my madness. Okay, so I'm going to make that a mesh. Again, we're going to come back. I'm going to say let's merge that folder. And all I'm doing here is I'm just making variations of this flower disk thing. That's all I'm doing, right? But I'm using the ability that I have with having the possibilities here of using array mesh to help me come up with some. So I didn't do one with 4 yet. It's probably not going to work. It doesn't look very good. But I don't know. Maybe it will. Let's try it. Okay, so then I go like this. Again, I'm making my mesh. Right? I'm going to merge that down again, merge my folder. So let's rename that as well. So we're going to call this one flower. What am I on? 4. 4. And let's just make one more because you guys get it. This is getting you're getting it now. Okay. So let's go to array mesh. Let's make something that's maybe not so crazy. Maybe 20. Let's go 16, 12. Okay, let's do 12. That looks good. That's something different. Okay, make that a mesh. Okay, again, we're going to merge our folder. Okay, come back down to his. And now through here, okay, I'm going to rename this one, the last one. We're going to name that flower 5. And let's turn them all on now. Okay, so all these different ones are turned on. They're sitting in the same spot. So what I'm going to do now is looking at this, I'm going to look at just the front of it like this straight on. I'm going to go to brush and I'm going to say create insert multiple meshes. And what that does is creates a brush with all the subtools that I have. Okay? So for this sake, I don't need this folder, so I'm going to delete all those because I don't want those also to be in the brush. Okay, and I don't need any of this anymore. So I'm going to delete these because I don't need this because I have found my flower powers that I want. And again, looking straight on the front of it, brush, create insert multiple mesh, and then now you can see I have flower 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the whole point of this was this. I come back now to my character. Okay. And now I want to put this flower. In fact, maybe I want to put it right here on this portion right here. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. So now all I do is I grab one of these, okay, and I just click and drag it out. Okay, so this is saying, hey, you've got layers and you've got subdivision levels. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate this, okay, right, piece. I'm going to come down here and say, you know what? I don't need any of the hires, and I definitely don't need the layer. Okay, so I'm going to delete it. So in essence, I have this mesh is kind of now my base mesh. So when I draw on it, I'm doing this, right? And what I'm actually drawing on, right, is just obviously a copy of this. Okay, so looking at this, I can turn on the smooth, and here we'll start adding the other one. Okay, and what's happening here is I can see how does that look, right? Number one, is it sitting really on the surface where I want, right? So you can see how it's sitting right there. That's not what I want. So I'm going to come over here to my brush, and I'm going to open up my depth. Yeah, you got to say it that way too, depth. Okay, and you can see the embed set to 19. I'm going to set this to 0. Okay, and then now when I draw out this disk, right, you can see it's kind of sitting more inside the surface. Okay, 0 looks a little too extreme. Okay, so I'm going to say let's just bump this to 10 then. And then now draw it out. Yeah, there we go. That's what I want. Okay, so that's sitting right on the surface. I'm seeing what that looks like. Okay, so I can see what that's going to look like in this way, right? Now what's nice about this is I'm using insert mesh brush. This is drawing out. Okay, I can kind of see the overall of this, what this will look like. Okay, and if you want right now, you can see how this is kind of punching through, right? We can solve that problem. It's because these are both sitting in the same spot in space right now. So I can just, in essence, the one that I'm drawing on the insert mesh brushes, I could just probably scale it down. So let's unmask this. Scale it down a little bit and then push it in, right? And what's beautiful about this is that even though I'm trying to draw on this subtool, when I go to draw this out, right, ZBrush actually sees the other plate. So sure it stays where I want it. Okay, so now that other plate, I kind of like the double thing that's happening there right now. That other plate is here. Okay, so the point of this is, how does that look now on the character? Am I happy with that? Do I like the way that disk is looking? Is it too busy compared to the rest of the pattern that's going on? So this is what I like to do. You throw your gizmo back on. Okay, and now I'm aligned. And now as a user, all I have to do is say, okay, well, let's really look, and now just, well, how does it look like with that? How does it look like with that? With that one or that one? So I'm going, which one is looking better for me? So now, because I'm in array mesh, I'm just looking at this side because I don't want the gizmo in my way. I'm going to pull back a little bit now, and now I'm just going to swap between them. Okay, I don't like that one. It's too simple, I think. This one, this was the one I thought was really cool. I could say, you know, it's kind of maybe too busy because you got this pattern going on here and then some busy pattern going on here. Okay, that's way too simple. Okay, I like that one. So it's, for me, it's between that one and that one, right? So this is what I'm setting myself up for. I'm setting myself up for the ability to kind of, I don't even know what I want, and I want to design and mess around, okay, and figure out what do I want. So I'm just combining options right now. I'm combining the ability to use array mesh to create some different type of patterns. I'm combining the ability to take multiple subtools, convert it to a brush, and then it's allowing me to use the gizmo now to kind of swap between them. And I'm not going to lie, I like the first one the best for me personally. Which one do you guys like best? Number 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1. Right? So obviously I could have done like 18 of these, 20 of these, 10 of these. It could have gone on forever to be able to create something like this. So I like this the best. So then that's my choice. And then there you go. There's that subtool. And I kind of like the double thing that's happening. Happy mistake there. And I'm going to keep that. I'm digging it. I like it. And then there you go. Start building this process and start going down now and continuing, like I said, building these plates and using them to complete the character now, right? And at this, I can start seeing where plates are colliding and plates are hitting each other. So it's a great way to work. So again, the advantage of me doing this was low polygon. Then it's making it easier for me to UV it up, right? It's making it easier for me to add edge loops and use something like ZModeler, right? I was able to just crease that one edge right there and make it kind of be with a point. I changed the form a little bit, silhouette through here, right? Because it's so low polygon, it makes it really easy for me to look at this, right? So we can go back to this plate as well, right? So let me switch brushes here, right? And now I have this plate, and looking at this, maybe you want this edge right here to be creased. So what's that look like? I don't know. So let me see what that looks like and say maybe you want that instead. So the left side's not creased, and the right side is creased. Like, so which profiling look do you prefer? And because it's so low polygon, it's easy to look at these adjustments and make these adjustments for me. This is nice because that line just continues. But because this is so rounded, I think I prefer this to be that rounded. So it kind of keeps that same relationship happening there with these plates that are what that's going on here. Right? So this starts opening up a lot of things. So this is one way about going about doing this, is using the topology brush, going through it. So if you're someone that's also doing something like more of like a sci-fi and you just want to start creating some plates real fast, another way that I like to work, okay, and this is where I will use the existing topology of my guy here, is using this polygrouping ability. Okay, so I've got the shoulder plate here. Now I just want to start making some kind of sci-fi more-esque. So I'm going to start masking off and say, okay, it comes like this. Okay, let's turn symmetry on so I can have symmetry ability. And then it comes up, all right, like this and like that. Okay, so the problem is I'm painting inside into that blue, which is i.e. that shoulder plate. Okay? Wow, there's no comments coming through in a while. You guys are either like bored or something else is going on. Look up here! There, now you're awake. Okay, so what I like to do in this particular workflow is I'm going to want to start creating new polygroup plates in essence, right? So this would be all filled in, right? So I just fill this in, Control W. But like I said, it's going into that plate. I don't want that to happen. So for me to really do this right way, I'm going to go to my brush palette. Okay, and I'm going to come down here to my auto masking, and I'm going to turn on this all the way, which is in the mask by polygroups. I love this feature. This is a great little hidden feature that I use quite a bit. And then so now the benefit to me is if I start on this green, here I'm going to turn off the lines, so we're just looking at color. Okay, I can start painting in the green, and it's not going to go into the blue. No matter what I try to do, I'm not going to be able to go into the blue. Into the blue. Into the blue. And now, I just now continue masking what I want as a plate for an example. Control W that. And you can see now that green is butting right up with that blue. All right, so now if I want to make another plate here, maybe I want to make some kind of plate here. And you can see I am not touching any part of the green now, which is perfect. Control W, and then say now I'm going to have another plate here. So what's going on is I am selecting or clicking on first this green-ish tone color here, right? And so because that's the polygroup I'm clicking on, that is the only polygroup that ZBrush is looking at now. It's ignoring the other polygroups. So even if I move my cursor over here, nothing happens. Okay? And all I'm doing is this, right? And you know what? I don't like that. I'm going to make these. This is kind of why I like this workflow. I can have freedom to readjust. I prefer that instead, okay? And then now there's going to be a big plate here. Okay, which really in the grand scheme of things doesn't make sense because the guy wouldn't be able to be the bend. So I'm going to make this kind of have a pattern. But I'm going to use this kind of as my guide for that pattern. Just I want to see, is that where I want the plate to go? Yep, 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 yep. Okay, now maybe let's make another plate here. Comes across, maybe to protect his obliques. And comes across the back like this. And comes up like this. So I just enjoy working this way because I don't know I don't even know, like in my head I didn't know that I was going to be making this way, and I don't like the triangle that's going to be made here. So see, I can kind of see that now and unmask that and then Control W that. Okay, and then now maybe there's going to be another plate here that maybe even goes around the pelvic area, the great the greater canter, fun word to say. Okay, and then Control W that, right? And so let's make them be, wow, ZBrush is really liking purple today. I'm just making different polygroups so you can visually see. Okay. So again, this is all possible because I've turned this slider on, right? So this is a global thing. What's up, side effects? Okay, so if I even switch to any brush, like a sculpting brush, and start sculpting, you guys can even just start creating panels this way if you want to, right? And just work this way, and you decide sculpturally how far do you want that panel to kind of start coming off the body and then smoothing it back, right? You can see that starting to come off the body, and depending on where I click is going to depend on what I get. Well, now he looks like he's an alien in there. Right? Something like this, maybe more. Something like that, right? And I can kind of work this way. That looks so funny. All right. So instead of doing, say, something like that, okay, so, and again, it's a sculptural thing too, right? This is a global setting. Okay, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to put it back to 0. And what I'm going to look at is just these panels here. Okay? And what I want to do is make these panels using, obviously, the analoop feature. But what I kind of want to do with this is, instead of just creating the panels that look like that, okay, which this is creating now separate actual panel shells of topology, which is great. Okay, I have this ability. A little thing different, okay, with this. So let's undo that. I'm going to turn off the double. All right, and I'm going to put just a little bit more thickness. Let's try 0.02. Okay, I don't need to save this. And then hit panel loops. So now I get this. Okay, what's different here now is I want to maybe make panels that have like that kind of soft rounding. Okay? So what I want to do now is come through here and kind of do something more paneling like this. Right? That has some kind of little softness to it where you can see it. So the best way probably would be to do this, use uniformly, is use the polish feature. I would polish back those panels a bit, and then now I have this, right? And then I can say, let's add a little bit of crispness back, and let's just use a little bit of more polish by grouping in here. Let's go a little bit stronger. And then there, so now I have a combination of like soft, I got a combination of some harsh and different types of paneling. And then this is still connected to his body, right? So it's still one mesh. Hold on one second, I gotta sneeze. Maybe not. Well, it was coming. Okay, side effects. Are you talking about KeyShot Pro, the full version? Or are you talking about KeyShot Pro, the ZBrush edition, KeyShot Pro? Listen, KeyShot is definitely, when I'm doing like anything hard surface and when photorealistic, I use KeyShot. And with the bridge ability now, you can click one button and it sends everything over to KeyShot, right? We can come here in the render, go to external renders and turn on KeyShot, and it automatically, what I'm looking at will automatically go over to KeyShot. It's super convenient. It's super nice. It's very fast. And since you're going to do you're talking about thinking about doing the ZBrush edition, you're talking $550. It's normally $2,000 for the full version of the KeyShot. So this version would be only for ZBrush. So you'd have to load a model inside of ZBrush, right? And then send it over, which is no big deal. But if you're someone, it depends on what you do for a living, side effects. Like, what is it you want to do with your career or what you're doing for a living, okay? Because maybe if you got a client that wants to see more photorealistic renders, it's going to be way faster to send it to something like Keyshot where you don't have to worry about displacement maps or anything like that, or you can just render it inside ZBrush as well. And yes, the ZBrush edition only works with ZBrush. You have to have the edition of the Keyshot Pro for ZBrush with the bridge. And then that only works, you have to load your model in ZBrush. So you can't import something. That's obviously how we got them to discount the software, from $2,000 to technically $400 because then the bridge is $150. So you pay $550 for Keyshot with the bridge. So to answer your question, Grim T Reaper. Okay, so back to this. You have the ability to create panels. So this is something that's very popular for like automotive people use this. I use this for, I use it for my Rocketeer backpack. When I made my backpack, I use it as a way to do that as well. So here, let me see if I can load it for you. Let's see, Rocketeer. And again, what I'm about to load was completely done inside of ZBrush 100%. Okay, so here's my Rocketeer backpack that I ended up printing out. In fact, here's the print, which the team at Carbon was kind enough to do. Right, they did an amazing job. Right, so here's a close, look at that backpack. Like, the jetpack is like going the wrong way. It's perfect. Like, they even went in and did the gapping that I'm like, why did you do that? I would have filled that in. It's crazy. Right? So this is and then there's the base, which was done with an array mesh, right? And so, let me just put that back. How I did this. So what I mean, and specifically, like the leather part of, let's say, this part right here, like all that to create kind of that bubbling to make it look like it's actually leather getting clicked in. Same thing within here, like it's leather, like that metal plate is pushing the leather and pinching the leather. How I did that was using what I just did right now, right, with the panel looping. So instead of using the panel loops to just create harsh, sharp panels, Gozy does not work with Keyshot. There is no such thing. There is no Gozy to Keyshot. You have to buy the bridge. So the bridge is the only thing you can do that is one-click solution out of ZBrush and sends everything automatically over to Keyshot. I mean everything. The only thing that won't get sent to Keyshot is live booleans because they don't have live booleans. But everything else will get sent. So to answer your question, Grim T Reaper, there is no Gozy to Keyshot. It doesn't exist. Okay, so now I'm looking at this and I'm messing with this, right? I'm going to start maybe dividing this up and start now maybe adding a little bit more detailing to these panels. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to create a morph target at the level I'm sitting at, which is 1.3 million. And I'm going to switch now to my chisel brush. And this is one of my favorite brushes to do some very nice, quick little, okay, I see, I want a design element coming through here, up through there, and coming out like that, right? Something like that. Okay, I don't like that one. What about this? Let's see what this one looks like. Yeah, I like that one better. Right? And the reason why I'm doing something like a morph target is if I decide to say, okay, I'm going to do an edge cut through here, and then I want it to go straight across like that, and then keep going. So I want something like that. Okay? And now I want to make another one through here. So I can click, hold the shift key, and then draw straight through. And then there you go. Right? And the beauty here is this is all staying at the same distance. Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage also of having the ability that when I click and hold the shift key, I can actually do angles and do maybe something like that instead. Right? Now, the problem we have here is it's not going all the way to where my cursor is, right? So if you look here, I come across, it's not going to go as far, right? So I want here, and then when I do this, where my cursor is, I want it to go all the way to there, right? And it doesn't. So what I do is in the stroke palette for this particular brush, okay, the lazy mouse radius is set really high. I'll turn this down to something more like 5. So then I can go, okay, I'm going to start drawing out from there. Then hold the shift key. Now it goes to there. Hold the shift key again. Now I want it to go there. Hold the shift key again. Hold the shift key again. And then hold the shift key again. And then there you go. Right? And then now at any point in time, I decide, you know what, I want to put something else through here. Maybe I want to come through here and just make, whatever reason, 2 lines that do that. Right? Or I want that to continue down now, maybe the whole body. Right? And then as I'm going over top of this, they're all at the same depth. Right? So as I'm brushing across, right, I get the same depth. Here, I'm going to turn off symmetry. And what's causing that is the morph target. Okay? This is what we're going to be able to do. Then morph target, there is a create difference mesh. What create difference mesh is? Okay, so since we're talking about it, let's just grab something else. Okay, so since you're bringing up the difference between this and say live booleans, so if I store a morph target, okay, and let's just say for the grand scheme of things, I start sculpting some kind of beard. Yeah, there. Happy little beards. Happy beards. Okay, so a morph target, the vertex points cannot change. In essence, you can't use something like Sculptress Pro on this because then your morph target would be deleted. Because the morph target is counting on the fact that you've not changed anything as far as the geometry goes, adding edge loops or extruding or Q meshing, or like I said, using Sculptress Pro or Dynameshing it. No bueno. Okay? Can't do that. Okay, so now I got this beard looking thing. So what create difference is doing, it saw what the mesh looked like when it was just his head without the beard, and then now it sees the beard. And what it's going to do is create a new mesh that is only the beard, right? So it's only giving me now the difference between the morph targets. The difference right now is the beard part. So it creates a mesh like this, okay, and we turn our lines on, that has a front and a back. And that's it. That's all it's doing, okay? Doing this live Boolean wise, sure, you could do something like that as well. Now, the benefit to live Boolean, right, is there's freedom here to do whatever we want, okay? So if I'm looking at this as a Boolean state, you got to be mindful of what are you going to do here, all right? So let's load the demo head clean. Okay, and go back to the bearded versions. Let's insert the clean demo head. And we need to divide that one up to where were we? Okay, 911,000 polygons. Okay, and now in essence, these are sitting in the both spots in the world, right? So if I make this a start group, and we'll make the eyes a start group, I turn on live booleans, nothing happens. Okay, and I turn subtractive, you're going to get this. So number one, our problem with this mesh is it's got an opening. Okay, you can't have an opening, right, for the live booleans to work the right way. Number one. Okay, so I'm just going to do something quick. Let's just turn this into a Dynamesh, which I know will close off the bottom portion for me. Okay, and then let's do the same thing with this one. Let's close this one off. Okay, and no projection, no blur. Okay, and you can see the result you get. So the problem we have here is this is sitting in the exact same space, right? That's in essence creating a ton of coplanars. So right now I've got this mesh that has nothing done to it sculpturally, and then this mesh has the sculptural part to it. This is a subtractive. So what I would need to do if I'm going to use something like live booleans, I need to have a little bit of a difference here. Right? So I just need to size up the one that I'm using as subtractive. Right? And then now the beauty is, like we've been saying, I can just on the fly change what this completely looks like. Right? So now I'm just pulling on the points, and I'm using the other pieces, right, to start driving. It looks kind of funny, right, what this is going to look like. Let's pull the eyes. Right? Now, would be a way to go about this. But obviously, you can see difference mesh was a lot quicker. Right? Because in order to do this, you got to make sure that you don't have them sitting in the exact same space. Right? So what I'm doing is I'm actually adjusting this one so it's actually clipping this where I want it to clip and delete. Right? So that's pretty much what I'm doing here. Right? That's it. This is how it would look like with live booleans. What you see is what you get. So the benefit here is this is non-destructive. So I can play with this and watch the actual result changing. So I can get a result maybe that I want more or less. So maybe start playing with the beard a little bit more and getting kind of a little bit more, something like that. So there's just different edging happening through here. And there you go. Something like that. Okay, and then what I can tell ZBrush to do is down here, Boolean, and then make the Boolean mesh. Right, and then that's going to make a new tool. Right, and what I'm looking for is there's two groups. Right, so then I'm looking for that, and that's right here. And so one subtool is the bearded portion, and then one subtool is obviously the eyes and the mouth. Right, but then this is all closed off, ready to go and clean. And then me now, what's become one of my go-tos to do even more is Sculptris Pro, right? I can kind of now soften up this if I want to, and I can even say, oh, I don't want this at all, and quickly delete whatever I don't want even. It's pretty awesome to be able to work like that. And then I'll switch to say something like snake hook, right? And then just start snake hooking some stuff if I want to. Right? Add a little bit of that shifting change. Great way to work here. Right? Oh yeah, that's nice. Let's, instead of using snake hook 2, let's use snake hook 1, which snake hook 1 is camera plane. Snake hook 2 is normal dependent. Right? So it would be better to me to use camera plane for what I'm trying to do. To just make some little bit difference in there. Right? And then maybe throw some clay buildup again on this. Let's go a little bit bigger brush size. Yeah, there. There. Happy little trees there. Happy little trees. Then I would probably start throwing in some Damien Standard. Okay, and then start changing that up a little bit and add a little bit of just some variation in the heights as well. You get it, stuff like this. But I just like combining now these options to give me something that I was not able to get before. Right? And then there you go. So, good afternoon, Bruce. How are you? When you're using Z-spheres and they turn transparent from time to time, okay, that's a great question. I want to answer that because I think it's very important. So number one, if you're going to use Z-spheres, I personally will always stay in symmetry mode unless I'm making something that's asymmetrical, right? And I don't care about it being symmetry. Okay, I'm going to turn off live booleans because we don't need that on anymore. So you click and you draw and you get this, right? And then you can switch to move, pull that, or you can say keep it like that, and then that, maybe switch this out, right? And then maybe move those up a little bit, scale them down a little bit, throw it in there, maybe something like that. Come in here. This is why I like to use symmetry, because I know I'm only drawing one Z-sphere there, because when they connect and become a green sphere, I know I'm just getting only one. Right? So we start maybe making something like this. And then maybe that's the base of the neck. Okay, and then there's the neck. So we'll do something like that. And then, yeah, there. Happy little trees. Yeah, there. Switch to scale. Scale this up. Okay. So what's happening here, when it grows transparent, it's a warning system for you. Okay? That's what it is. So if I start to grab a Z-sphere, okay, and I start to pull on it, you're just manipulating and moving it. However, the minute that the Z-sphere crosses over a chain that's not going to work, you get this, transparency. This is a warning system that's telling you, hey, what you're trying to do is actually not good. This could cause problems when the Z-spheres try to go and generate and make the mesh. That's what this transparency thing is telling you. It's telling you, I wouldn't do that honestly, because when you go hit that A key, right, i.e. the adaptive skin key, right? So down here, when you go to hit this preview button, which is the letter A, Canadian A, okay? That is a big no-no. So you want to pull it apart so it looks like this. So when you hit A, you get that. And I probably don't want Dynamesh on in my case. And so what you see is what you get, and then you're getting clean topology, right? So that's what this transparency thing is. It's a warning system. They tell you, warning, danger, Will Robinson, danger, right? And it's when it chains. So see when you start putting the chains over more chains, you'll start showing what the problem is. Okay? Forbidden. All right? And then deleting a Z-sphere in the middle of the chain, all you have to do is you be in draw mode. Okay? Hold the Alt key and tap, and it deletes it. Okay? So that is, well, let me do that. That is what's going to be in that. And, you know, this is something old that no one uses anymore, but this is cool. Right? Z sketching is cool. So you can build up a volume this way, which now with Dynamesh mode being within the adaptive skin is pretty great to be able to do this. So this is literally drawing out Z-spheres and building up the surface. And then you can smooth back them and then connect them in different ways. It's pretty cool. I haven't used this feature in a long time. Whee! You can do stuff like this. Nice. So that's just Z-sketch. I just put Z-sketch on, which is right here, right below the adaptive skin. And then you can build up the surface. And then when you hit A, you can get this, which is only giving you the Z-sketch, right? But you can also have it, right now when you hit A, it's using the adaptive skin. I mean, sorry, it's using the unified skin, right? So it's looking at only giving you that, right? And then you can even bind this, right? and then when you go rotating Z-spheres, it moves with it. Oh, yeah. Man, it's been a long time since I used this. This is fun again. Yeah, there. Happy little trees. Happy little trees. Oh, yeah, there. It's a great way to start building up some surface if you want. Right? And look at the volumes of things, and super convenient. Whoops. Like that. Nice. Nice. And then if you do it this way, it'll actually show you can get adaptive skin with the sketch being projected into the adaptive skin. So if you turn off edit sketch and I'll hit preview here, I'm now turning up my density and I'm looking at it this way. So you could probably turn down the density. I've never tried it with Dynamesh. Oops, I just went crazy with Dynamesh. Yeah. We need more density too. So there you go. So this is a Dynamesh mesh with it. Cool way to work. Right? Okay, how do you merge two Z-sphere rigs? Like putting the Z-sphere hand on the body or merging a human body with one? You can't. Not anymore. Can't do that. Can't merge the Z-spheres to connect them. Will there or has there ever been a sale of the Keyshot Bridge? No. No, Fab. I can't say never, but we've never done it. It's already priced at a very low price at $150. It's pretty cheap as far as what it can do. And then because Keyshot is so cheap too, it's 75% off. So I can't say no, never, but I can just tell you we have never done it. So I wouldn't wait to see if we do it. If you really think that workflow is going to work for you, I'd say just get it. McFly, you're my destiny. Is there a way to adjust the look of the Z-sphere topology instead of orange or brighter? What do you mean orange or brighter? You mean the actual Z-spheres themselves? Like just as you're working with them? You're saying the topology though. And so you're talking about using Z-sphere retopology? No. It's going to stay the orange. It's been a long time since I've jumped in here in the eye color and see if there's something in here that I don't remember being one in here. No, this is none of these. No, these are just button switches, titles, subtools. No. That's a no. That's a nope. Unfortunately. Yeah, so you're talking about here when you're going to edit topology and then you start drawing out your points like this. No, there's no way to change that color. All right, let's see if I missed anything else. Not returning the correct. You're having trouble with the color picking, so it's not returning the right color. Well, there are some features maybe that you're messing with. Maybe that you're doing something. So hold on, let me get some color on here. Let's paint some color on here. We don't need that on. Yeah, red, green, different green. Let's do a purple, blue, and then green again. I don't know why. Here, let's do an orange. Okay, so what you're saying is, are you click and dragging like this to pick your color? Which this is picking the right color. Or you can just hold the C key, which I prefer, and that's picking the right color. There's nothing wrong happening here at all that I can see. What way are you doing it? Are you doing by the click and drag? Like, are you doing it this way? Because don't hold the Alt key. Because if you hold the Alt key doing it this way, it's also grabbing the material shading. So you can see there's without Alt key and there's with Alt key. Without Alt key, with Alt key. That will make a difference 100%. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so if you're going to do this, there's a hidden little feature, and we did this for specifically when we did the NPRs. Holding Alt key will give you a different result. So don't do that, because it's also looking at the material shading possible. So the C key should give you exactly what you're doing. So there's nothing else here that's going to give you a darker version. Because you can see I'm not having any of that problem. Try upgrading to 20.1 and then see maybe by some fluke, even though we did nothing fixing of this, because you're the first person to tell me that's not picking the right color. So if you're having more issues, I would recommend making a support ticket on our support.pixologic.com. And to upgrade again, now that we've launched 2020.1, you just go to your file folders, and run the Z upgrader. And in 2020, right here, you run this Z upgrader. See, I've already updated. And then it'll go find the update and download it. You can also go download the full install in your licenses page. So the pixologic.com/mylicenses. Meets Myers, he's still rocking and rolling. He likes to do a lot of different projects and different things. I don't think his original name was Meats. I don't think his parents named him Meats. I think that's something that he ended up going by, if I remember right. I haven't talked to him in a while. And then you don't need to load anything from My Licenses or anything for the upgrade. Once you do the upgrade, it's still activated. That's also what was new for 2020. If you guys already had your version of ZBrush is activated in your machines, 2020 was already automatically activated. Okay, so I don't see I missed any questions. So any last minute questions before we call this a Dunsky stream? Thank you again for joining me and being a part of this. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys took away something. I was really trying to hone in on just thinking about workflows, and obviously in my case I was using like a medieval knight and then using like sci-fi and thinking about different ways of working. We had a couple tangent questions, which is always great. I really love having tangent questions within the stream. It really always helps me making sure you guys are getting information that you want to do. Okay, so yes, and then 2020.1 GoZ will work with Maya 2020. So before I sign off, any other last minute questions before we call this a done stream and we call it a day? Okay, I appreciate you watching. So tune in for next Thursday's. Solomon Blair of the Pixologic team will be going next Thursday. I know he's been working on The Mandalorian. I don't know if he finished it up or not. He's been working more on that, but check that stream out as well. You're getting it straight from another developer. Okay. If I got a tip, what's the tip? How do you get some good poly paint for translucent skin, for example? That is going to be more at render time. Painting like skin, you can use the old noodling way, which is a popular way of like by hand painting. It's like the way that old school would use, one of the ways they would use for like the film world, right? So we would do something like this, where you would fill it with like a skin tone underneath here. So write something like this. It's really gonna be at rendered. We have SSS ability to do skin, so at render time. So you can do something like this, or you can just fill it with this pink color if you want. Okay, kind of like what's happening here. And then you're going to use 3 primary colors, okay, which is your red, blue, and your yellow. Okay, so your red becomes the parts where kind of blood flow is really happening. So you're going to have some reds in here, some around the lips, maybe. You'll get a little bit in the ears as an example. Okay, then you switch to like a blue. Okay, so blue is going to be kind of more like your recessed areas, like in the eyes a little bit, and then you have some here in the nose, right? Something like that, maybe. Okay, and maybe have from a male, I'd probably have a little bit of blue in the along the mandible because I haven't, but if you shave often, you know your skin gets irritated here, right? So you'll have a little blue irritation. And then you would do a yellow, and yellow will go pretty much where the bone is closest to the skin, kind of a thing, right? And that's going to help with the translucency a little bit painting wise. Okay, so this is something that they would do. Like this is a really quick demo idea. Right, so side effects, Maddie Spencer's calling it out. This is a technique that Maddie Spencer has shown for years, right? And then now I switch to say something like freehand, switch to something like a white, and then you just do literally, they call it noodling because you're just making little noodles, right? I don't have enough topology. And so now you literally just sit here and do this. Like make crazy eights. Noodle, 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 noodle. And what that's doing is breaking up the color. So when you come down here, this crazy clown blue that's happening, right? So you could also just grab one of the skin tone colors would probably be the best. And then you start noodling it. So you're just sitting here doing this over and over again. I'm going to go a little bit more white. Just break it up a little bit. Right, you got to obviously be careful. So something like this. Like it's time consuming. This is not a fast workflow. Right? Not in any shape, way, or form is this a fast workflow. Obviously, you could speed up the process a little bit by doing a drag rec, but be careful with this. This is getting like so like automated, like kind of a thing. You can speed it up and do something like that. I'm just using an alpha to kind of break it up. This alpha sometimes would be a good alpha to do some of the noodling break up with. And the size of your noodling is important. So when you're on bigger portions, you'll have a little bit bigger noodling, like when I'm up here in the forehead maybe. I have a little bit bigger noodling. And then when I'm down here by the nose, right, it's going to stay small. Right, so something like this. As an example, and I know somebody already said it, watch Maddie Spencer. If you look up Madeline Spencer or Maddie Spencer, okay? And then now what you do is you go back and you grab one of the skin tone, you grab the skin tone color, switch back to freehand, okay? And then now you knock your RGB intensity way down, and then you just slowly build over top of what you did. And believe it or not, it'll, because of that red, blues, and yellows, it'll look like there's underlining skin tone. Like I'm not doing a very good job to show. Okay? So I would recommend that. I recommend that technique if you're going to try and use poly painting. If you're not using like an image or something like that, and you want to use straight up poly painting, this is one of the better techniques to use. It's just time consuming, which, you know, we're digital. We're so used to pressing a button, something happens. Back in the day, man, they had to sit there and hand paint stuff. It's time consuming. Sometimes that's what makes the best art. They be willing to take the time into it. There's an old video on YouTube of her doing this. Like really old. Like I want to say 15 years old. Like super old. Let's see. Let me see if I can make one quick attempt to see if I can find the video and share the link with you guys. Here, ZBrush skin noodle. It's super old. Like she's been showing that technique for years. I don't. There's just so much now. Skin paint. like if you do a search, I can already see there's a bunch of great ones. Michael Poplovich has one. I don't see the one that was from Maddie. Here, let me try this. Hold on. Let me try something else here. Hold on 1 second. Here we go. I think I found something. Let me see if this is it. Yeah, here you go. Here's a video that shows her in it working. So, oops, I'm on the Windows side. So used to working on the Mac side. There you go. There's a link of a video that you can look at. Okay, I would recommend looking at something like that. That's that technique is what you're seeing in there. Okay, everyone, I'm off. Thank you for being part of the stream. Thanks for coming. Thanks. Hopefully you had a lot of fun. All the best. Okay, and have a wonderful evening, day, wherever you are. I'm out.